All right. Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Matt Pfeiffer. This is Conversations on Retail. We're so excited that you're here this morning. It's a beautiful day in Bentonville, Arkansas. Tony D'Onofrio is kicking off a brand new series with us focused on retail technology. And Tony's guest today is an old friend, Greg Buzek, president of IHL Services. And they're going to talk about AI's $9.2 trillion impact on retail through 2029. Just in brief, just a reminder that this is intended to be a conversation and not just a presentation. I know Greg has prepared some great slides. It's going to be showing a lot of data, and those slides are going to be available afterwards, by the way. But we would encourage each of you to actively participate in this conversation, and the best way you can do that is to click on the Q&A button at any point during the presentation and submit your questions and your comments and your feedback, even things that maybe sort of go against what is being shared, push back. So we're glad you're here. Tony, I'm going to turn it over to you and Greg.
Thank you very much. So, Greg, let's put up the opening slide there that we have for our guests. And again, we're not going to have a lot of slides here today, but what we are going to talk about is what AI is doing. And again, this is a new series. Glad to be launching this series. What I'm going to be focused on in this series, just as some peeks as to what's coming next in terms of what are the disruptive technologies that are out there for retail. What are some new retail revenue streams that retailers can take advantage of? And once in a while, we're going to take a pulse in terms of what the industry is doing overall, and also what economies around the world are doing. And so on. I know Greg is a master of this, so I attended many of these webinars, and I've enjoyed those dramatically. As part of this series, we're also launching a new website called retechleadership.com. That leadership is there. That site is there to continue this conversation after we are done with these webinars, and you'll see all kinds of other things happening as part of that. But today, I really want to focus on AI, where AI is at, and it's starting the series since this is such a hot topic in the industry right now. I really thought of Greg, especially since he just finished some brand new research in terms of what's going on in the industry. So, Greg, let's go to the next slide and have you introduce yourself and the IHL.
Sure. Hey, guys. So my name's Greg Buzek, president of IHL. Older than dirt, I think, now. I've been doing this for 31 years in retail. Started at NCR as a product manager, then at Sensormatic, and started IHL in 1996, mainly because we wanted to be an organization where our customers could challenge the data, understand the assumptions that go into the data, and be able to talk to the analysts who are doing the research so that you fully understand things as you create your products or use that information going forward.
That's excellent. And again, I'm Tony D'Onofrio. I've launched in 2018 TD Insights Live, which is really an advisory group that works in disruptive technology. I've worked with a lot of retailers. And actually, I've spent a lot of time in Silicon Valley looking at new technologies and new directions. I'm currently in the middle of finishing up my first book. It'll be out later this year. It's going to be on my personal branding journey. It'll be published, believe it or not, first of all in the UK, because that's where it's being edited and produced. And it'll be published at a retail event early October. So that's the plan. But I got a few more chapters to finish. So lots of pressure to do that. But I'm having a lot of fun doing these kind of things, learning with all of you in terms of what retail is doing, where some of the AI is going, and where technology really is taking us next. So I have a lot of things that I want to get done going forward, including we're going to have some special surprises in October for this audience and for the global audience that you will be invited to. But today it's all about AI. And so we're going to focus on AI. And with that, before I go there, though, Greg has got a double life. And so I want him to speak to that double life. And this is a very important double life. So go ahead, Greg.
Oh, hey, thanks, everybody. I lead the Retail Orphan Initiative. And, so if you're not familiar with it, it's just a group of do-gooders in the retail industry to help orphans and vulnerable kids. Started 15 years ago at the Oracle Open World event, and just using our skill sets, our knowledge to come alongside great charities that are doing great work to build them up and expand their capability. So in those 15 years, the people in our industry have helped over 312,000 kids around the world. So, we had a slide here for those of you that are retailers, but anybody here. Our big fundraiser is Super Saturday in New York, which is the Saturday before NRF that weekend. And this year for retailers that register, we are going to, and attend, we are giving away 2 tickets to the NCAA Final Four college basketball tournaments. You can choose men's or women's this year. So we want to get as many retailers there as possible. So that's how we fundraise, and that's kind of what it is. So we encourage you to be a part of it. So thanks.
And I actually have been to Super Saturday. That's a combination of all kinds of really retail data in terms of what's happening in the retail industry, but also an update on the Orphan initiatives. They also take trips that include retailers and technologists in different parts of the world. I know Greg actually just got back from one, Jamaica. So it's really something to, if you're going to NRF Big Show, it's a perfect place to start the big show in terms of learning what's going on in retail and learning what's going on in technology. But let's jump into AI. And I want to start very broad and actually then get narrow in terms of what they did as actually telling us through the new research that Greg is talking about. So this is actually the Gartner hype cycle of artificial intelligence for 2022. And you can see we go through all these cycles all the way getting down to the throttle disillusionment and slope of enlightenment. I love how they come up with these words, but it does say is artificial intelligence is a very broad subject. We're going to narrow our discussions to retail, but this gives you an idea in terms of which technologies are bubbling up to get to really to lead the pack in terms of artificial intelligence. Greg, what are your thoughts in terms of what Gardner is trying to say here?
Yeah, looking at this, I don't have many disagreements other than the fact that I think the digital ethics piece there that is in this trial of disillusionment, I think it's really back over here in the innovation trigger right now if you talk to everybody, because it's just the Wild West there. But I don't have any big disagreements with what they've got here in terms of timing for things. I think the thing that's missing from all of the kind of things is scale. It's one thing to have the same curve, but what's the scale of impact in each one of these areas, I think would make it a little better.
And I agree with you. The one that stands out to me, which is computer vision, it's way out there in the slope of enlightenment, which tells you that's going to get commercialized in less than 2 years. I'm already seeing a ton of commercialization in computer vision. That's actually one that has taken off dramatically. There's now 1 billion cameras that we crossed over in the world in 2021. So to me, that was one that's taken off. Well, what do you think about computer vision?
Yeah, I think they've got it here because it really hasn't plateaued. So they probably had an internal discussion and said, well, this is still going up, so we can't put it on the plateau.
Yeah, that's interesting. And then the other one that's interesting to me on this is autonomous vehicles. Man, I thought they were here, right? But it looks like it's going to be 10 years before we're going to get to autonomous vehicles. So where they're going to drive totally themselves. So you're not ready to sit in the back seat and do one of these webinars yet.
Yeah, not exactly.
So the other one is on the right, and this actually starts getting into retail a little bit more. Interesting, and in one of the latest RIS News store technology studies said that 63% still believe it's a buzzword and we're not actually there. And that percentage actually was striking to me. It was kind of high. What do you think?
When was the research done?
It was just done this year. This is the one they published this year. So
that was probably researched in the February to early March timeframe. I bet this has completely changed now. Yeah, when ChatGPT went over 100 million users and people started to really see it and some of the stuff happening, particularly with Midjourney and some of that stuff, that's when the light bulbs really came on for folks. And once ChatGPT became very widely available, it started to turn on. But I think at that time, people were looking at it really as a replacement for search, the general community. But then we just had this explosion of tools. that came out, and I think this data right here is no longer valid. That's why I laugh about our own study in January that we released. Is literally when we looked at it in terms of spend categories, that all got blown up in the last 2 months. Every conversation's about AI. CNBC released a study that said more than 50% of CIOs are now reporting that generative AI, and AI in particular, is their number one budget category for the rest of 2023. Well, in retail, what do you do with supply chain? What do you do with all the other challenges and labor and other things that we've been facing here? You can't throw them out, and you got to keep the lights on. So I would love to delve more into that data that they released yesterday. But yeah, it's fascinating, and every conversation that I see and hear. I mean, even on our Retail ROI trip, we had 22 people down there. And the primary conversations that turned to business was about generative AI and how it can be leveraged, and the traditional AI, and how they can be merged together, and the real benefits of it. 2 months ago, people were really skeptical about it, and now it's accepted that, oh yeah, this is going forward, and we're investing big time.
Well, I want to make this interactive, so we're already getting questions, which is great. The audience is engaging. And one of them is, they want you to repeat the reference to the data that was released yesterday. What was that again, Greg?
Oh, there's a CNBC study that came out yesterday, 2,000 business professionals. I think they were in a variety of disciplines that came out, so you can find it on CNBC or email me. I've got it. It's just a high level data, some headlines.
That's excellent. And again, we're going to make available this copy of this presentation. I like to share data. We are going to share data in every one of these webinar series, so you get something that you can take back. And I also like one of the few first questions that we got, which is, how will retailers and consumer brands most often consume AI technology directly or through solution providers as they engage? What do you think, Greg?
Yes. Most of it's going to be through solution providers.
Yeah, I would see the same. Although, and that's actually the perfect time to ask this question, one of the interesting chart addition to this is what you see here. There was a study done at MIT that basically says the majority of the technology AI PhDs are now going into industry. They're no longer moving into academia.
Right.
The industry starting to figure this out in terms of actually getting into the game.
Right. Yeah. Another announcement that came out late last night is Snowflake has partnered with NVIDIA so that you can have your corporate data in your own data lake, leveraging generative AI, and doing that. I mean, it came out, and the stock market's just now, right now, starting to react to it, to that announcement. So it's moving so fast. I mean, it took me about 2 months of doing nothing else but studying all these AI tools to get through this forecast. And I finally felt like I caught up enough to where I can keep up with today's announcements, let alone the previous announcements for things, in doing that. So yeah, it's exciting. Every day's different, and it throws a new wrench into it, for sure.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I want to thank, so folks, again, this is very interactive. I love it. I love this kind of format. So there's a link for the CNBC research. It's actually in the chat box. You can download it right now. It was posted by a couple people already. So please go there and get it. And again, we're getting so a lot of questions. So we'll have to keep going because we want to make sure we get to all that material.
We haven't even gotten to definitions yet, Tony. So
let's go to definitions. At least know what the hell it's talking about. So great, let's take a shot at this.
do you want to do it, or I'll?
No, you do it. No,
Okay. So
this was actually your chart, so I wanted you to.
yeah, no worries. So the first one is the traditional AI and machine learning that has been around for several years. This takes a great deal of data labeling and data cleansing up front to get any value. Otherwise, you end up with some very bad data. We talk about with generative AI, you talk about hallucinations, but when you start talking about forecast data, if it's not clean and accurate data there, you can get way off very, very quickly in machine learning models. But that being said, this is a huge, huge benefit to retailers. And I like to use the analogy that you're trying to get across New York City to LaGuardia Airport. And there are some, if the toll booth is the place that you get on so-called the Autobahn instead of the Long Island Expressway, but you get on the Autobahn for speed, there are some retailers that have done the hard work and cleaned their data and are in a position to where adding generative AI and ML, they are almost at that toll booth. The vast majority of retailers, though, have not done that hard work of cleaning their data, tagging their data as to what it is, and they're kind of stuck between 8th and 9th over there, stuck in traffic in Manhattan. They haven't even gotten to the tunnel yet. And that difference is kind of like, hey, we're going to run 100 meters or there, and Usain Bolt has already started, and you and I are slower, but we're even stuck in traffic and haven't even started yet. So that's AI and ML. Generative AI is ChatGPT. So that is basically taking existing knowledge out there and then creating new knowledge based on it, based on queries. Most of it has been trained on the internet. It's fascinating. If you do not give it context, you can get some massive hallucinations. Like one of my guys put my name in there, and first 2 paragraphs it came up with were accurate but very generic. The third paragraph was almost akin to me being the head football coach of Alabama and Auburn at the same time. It was absolutely absurd type of thing that's there. So, and I'm going to show some examples. When you do add context and you give it a persona there and you tell it exactly what you want out of it, it's extremely powerful. And that's what we're talking about here with generative AI. Artificial general intelligence, they like to say generative AI thinks like a human. Artificial general intelligence thinks it is human. And that is the big difference to where this you just throw the query out there and it'll just figure out what to do like a human being would do. That we're still years away from that being accurate there. LLM or large language models, that's what really you have with ChatGPT, Bard, Stable Diffusion, and many, many others. These are literally text of the internet trained items that does a great job with text. It does not do a great job with numbers. It doesn't do a great job of spreadsheet data. It may be able to extract data, but it doesn't do a good job of crunching data, finding trends in and of itself. That's where you add this on top of this kind of large language or generative AI on top of the traditional AI and ML insights, and then you've got a lot of power there. And then the last one here we're showing is multimodal. These are ones that now do language and graphics together. I'm sure you've seen AI pictures. Generally, you've had situations where it did all images and videos, or not there. And one of the things I should do for everybody, and we'll get, is I've got a list of, if you want to email me at the end, I'll give it to you. I got a list of AI tools that I've tested and put together. There are some crazy ones out there. Tony, if you wanted to speak in Mandarin, you would not only would it translate this in Mandarin, it would change your mouth to show you speaking in Mandarin as well. Just some mind-blowing tools that are out there right now. So those are some quick definitions for that. And
no, that's excellent. And I asked you to put them up there because I think those definitions are important. We all got to get comfortable with this stuff. I know it's not easy in the beginning, but this is the new world we're going to live in. So it's good to get the basics, or if you're not comfortable, get a hold of somebody that is and have a conversation, because we're entering in a world now where this is going to be much more prominent. And we're getting a ton of questions. Yeah. So what I'm going to do, because again, I want to get to the material, I'm going to ask Matt that we make sure we capture all those questions. And personally, I will try to follow up to some of them after, including if Matt, you can capture who asked the questions, or between Greg and I, we'll make sure we'll get all the questions answered. Today is to have a conversation, but more importantly, give you really valuable information that you can take back with you in terms of what's happening to AI and what's happening to AI specifically to retail. The one that Greg has already mentioned is Chat GTP. That actually is what took the world by storm. And I agree with Greg that, the retailers saying at 60%, it was mainly hype. That changed with this. It went to 1 million users in just 5 days. That's an amazing start. And then by 2 months later, it was already at 100 million. So amazing kind of a run for this type of technology. If you look at some of the others, if you look at Netflix, similar online type services took 3.5 years to get to 1 million, and you see some of the others on here. So ChatGPT that really has taken the world by storm. So Greg, what do you think about ChatGPT?
Yeah, I think it was the AOL moment for everybody on the internet. It was, I literally call it a Gutenberg moment, but it's when everybody sees it, and when you see it demonstrated correctly, it's like, oh wow, this changes everything. And honestly, if you dig into this, you won't sleep for 4 days because your mind will just go wild trying to think of all the use cases for this kind of technology going forward. And so just like AOL put an easy to use interface on top of the internet, that opened up everybody's mind to what could be done there. This is the same. And, quite honestly, I personally think it's the biggest transformation since the mobile phone, and probably going to be greater than the mobile phone impact on retail.
Yeah, this actually is up there. I named 3 mega trends post-World War II in retail. It's actually going to be the next one that I'm seriously contemplating to make that, because I do think it sets up in a totally different direction in terms of what zero. But you want to come briefly in terms of what do you think this is going to do to retail with ChatGPT is going to do to retail?
Well, it's not so much just ChatGPT. It's really AI and generative AI together, and artificial general.
We'll comment on that later, so we don't have. But let's jump to this. This is actually the one that shocked me, but it was an astronomical number, a huge number. So I already saw a question: how did you guys come up with that? Number, and so on the forecast model. So explain that.
Yeah, and the more we dig into it and get started on an individual retailer basis, I almost think this is going to be low there. So the easiest way to explain what we did without showing you the whole model, and I could bring that up and show it to you, is we started at the top end going through the financial statement. We looked at sales, cost of goods, SG&A, and we went through our categories of AI, the traditional AI, ML, the generative AI, and then the artificial general intelligence. What part of the financial statement do these impact? And then what's realistic? So when you think of generative AI as it's applied to sales, what's the value of one more visit, one more item in the basket each time, one more visit? If I'm able to customize this advertisement so that it is, I'm an Ohio State fan, okay? So all of a sudden the ad comes through and the daughter just happens to have an Ohio State jersey or shirt on there in there. That might be the car that's in the driveway might be my car. What's the essence of advertising is I could see myself wearing that, buying that, doing that type of thing. And with generative AI, you're going to be able to leverage that consumer data to customize everything for that consumer. How many more sales is that? The ability to do that. And we've actually, I think, forecast low in that perspective when it comes to things. The next is cost of goods. Cost of goods is mostly related to traditional AI and machine learning. This is the stuff we've been doing for years to get to clean data, to improve the supply chain there. Now, where generative AI comes in is some of the negotiation in the negotiation for the products and what's going on. Walmart is already doing this for their store fixtures and other items. And 2 things have happened. Number one, the humans on the other end of the negotiation rated higher, and it's already saved Walmart 3% of their procurement cost in those areas. It's just there are ways of lowering overall cost and product cost through those negotiations with generative AI, but most of it's going to be around better forecasting, types of things that you've got going on, where you've got that clean data and that you've focused on that. And then finally, SG&A. This is where the generative AI can really shine, because this is removing tremendous amounts of busy work and the amount of things here. The best example that I've come across is not necessarily a retail example, but it's the amount of paperwork in a hospital. In New Mexico, it was literally taking over a month for somebody to complete all the paperwork for when a child is born, and all the different systems, government systems that had to be deployed there. That's now down to 10 minutes using generative AI and the tools that are in place for them now. And so just a massive amount more there. Doctors being able to record and transcribe their appointments, and then just edit the first draft of those when it comes to the customer side. Just tremendous amount of benefits. But I'll show some examples.
So there's a question that came in actually that I think this will be perfect time to ask is, if we have any foundational information to assess the potential risk of AI that can be leveraged to commit fraud, especially online fraud. So the negative side.
Yeah, it's going to be huge. It's huge. The bad guys are always first, and they're already using it. I mean, I'm sure you've already seen in your own inbox how many more convincing phishing examples that are there. I mean, I've got half of my employee base wants to change their account on their payroll every day, type of thing. But some of it is related to invoicing and accounts payable, and can you verify this account, type of things that are coming from like SAP or Ariba or some of these vendors that do all these things for these corporate companies, and they are very, very convincing, particularly if you're looking at it on a phone where you don't necessarily have a good way of validating it. So the bad guys and the fraud, is going to go like crazy. And then that just needs the up the game for generative AI to be applied on the security side and the detection side even more. So you're going to see that security spend go up significantly with AI.
Yeah, I would agree with you, because I'm seeing that already. And I do think we need to more aggressively add AI on the solution side to actually attack some of this, to try to stay ahead of some of the issues that are going on. But you mentioned Walmart. Are there?
Let me finish the first thing, and let's come back to that, because we didn't just do the financial side of it. Then we went through by segment, by category. So we looked at basically, we took everything that was in our IT spend model. We took the software and the SaaS categories, and we used those as topics to look at, okay, what's the impact that these solutions, how much more impact can these solutions make now with AI or generative AI on top of it? And that's how we built the model. And then we looked at it by tier as well, because this is something that greatly favors the largest retailers.
We're going to talk about that here as we go here.
Yes.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that. But in terms of retailers that you think are doing it well, you mentioned Walmart. Who else do you think are doing a lot of good stuff with AI right now? If you have these retailers.
Well, it's the same guys that that got all the heat because of the supply chain issues. It's Target, it's Kroger, it's Walmart, it's Home Depot, it's Lowe's. Those guys got in trouble on the supply chain because their AI said, hey, we're going to need so much more merchandise, because we were out of merchandise there in 2021, and that would have been fine, except Russia invaded. So these guys had their own ships, were in better position if Russia didn't invade Ukraine. And that is what sent things haywire. And as a result, they were stuck with a lot of extra things there. But in terms of AI and being ready for AI, those guys are well above others because they've been working on this data for about 4 to 5 years.
Okay, excellent. But let's move on to the next one and start digging now into more of the below the surface data into that big number of 9.2 trillion. So the big news on this slide is actually the shift to generative AI that's taking place. So why the dramatic shift, do you think?
Well, part of it is just the growth. So the traditional AI and ML dominates it right now, and will continue to dominate that benefit for the next couple of years. Where the real benefits go from there is when the generative AI hits on top of it. There's a misnomer out there that you don't have to clean data to get good generative AI results out there. That's not true. If you've got clean data and accurate data, just like you have for the traditional AI ML, then you put the generative AI on top of it, it's exponential increase in performance. So the guys who have the real advantage right now are the people that have done the hard work on cleaning and tagging their data. And they've basically got the lanes in place so that once they get that data into their data lake, the generative AI can take it and run with it.
Yeah, what's interesting to me again is the slopes of the curves on the slide that you have there, and how smooth it's the perfect sales uplift slide in the generative AI. It's the one you don't want to see on the AI and ML. So where does AMI and ML you think end up at the end of this forecast? What are they?
I think you're going to get to a certain level of things. So it's kind of like the way I would look at it with just traditional AI and ML. It is extremely cost intensive to train the data and clean the data and all these different things. But I would look at it. Let's say Microsoft Word. Okay, it got to a point where in Microsoft Word, all the features you really needed or were doing were done. And there's some incremental things that got enhanced in there. But at the end of the day, you were trying to type and edit documents. And that's where the real benefit is that it wasn't a typewriter. And so that starts to level out. More of the issue, though, is just the rapid increase of the generative AI, particularly on top of that traditional AI and ML. And that's how we focused it. It's just right now we're in that stage where everybody's trying to figure out how they can use it or what they can use it. And next year, we're probably in a better situation where we're actually getting a lot more benefit from generative AI. And then it starts to merge with the traditional AI and ML. And it was like, who do you give the benefit to? Is that additional benefit due to the piping, or is it due to what you're now doing with that data over and above things there? So,
yeah, I agree. And I saw later in the forecast, quite a few years, AGI shows up. What do you think that plays in retail?
Yeah, and that's a big unknown because, just like you have hallucinations with the generative AI today, you're going to have some major issues with the development of things when it comes to alternative general intelligence. So it's artificial general intelligence, excuse me. At first, it's going to have the logic and the ability of like a 2-year-old or a 4-year-old, this type of thing. And it's going to be a long time before it takes that full-on, master's degree level person. It's going to go certainly a lot faster than a human being does. But we just think it's still going to be pretty early in the stages by the end of the decade in terms of value to retail.
So if you're a retailer, how the heck do you plan for AI? I mean, like IT's budget, even loss prevention, all these budgets, like, how do you actually plan for this? Or do you think it's all going to be initially solutions provider actually putting the intelligence that the retailers are going to buy? I don't think this is all going to evolve.
Yeah. So the number one thing is getting your data cleansed. Retailers have always had a ton of data. And getting that data cleansed and tagged benefits you regardless of what you do with it, whether you use traditional AI on it or use generative AI on it. So you need to have accurate data. You have to have a lot of it, and it's got to be tagged as to what it is. You have a little more flexibility with generative AI there because it can pull from other sources to help. But your best bet is your data that's cleaned and tagged and that is accurate, and have a way of cutting out the anomalies. And that's where you run into issues a lot of times is, okay, there's a merger. Okay, that merger, all of a sudden we've got different systems, different formats, different kinds of data here. How do we get that integrated into our customer view, for instance? And those are some challenges. And one of the things that we've figured out as well is your traditional e-commerce, pure play e-commerce folks have a tremendous head start here simply because they don't have the proliferation of systems. So when you think of that, that's what we're going through right now with our AI readiness index that we're working on is in a fast food. Yeah, the corporate stores could have some tremendous benefit from AI and the corporate entity there. However, what happens when you're in a highly franchised environment where you've got different systems that are pumping in data? It becomes a lot more difficult to do national campaigns when you have a highly franchised environment. However, when you look at somebody like a Walmart or a Home Depot or a Lowe's, that kind of environment where it's cookie cutter, every store is roughly the same, and we've rolled it out. Even though I've got multiple channels, I don't have a proliferation of systems in that environment that I'm continually dealing with. So they have unique advantages in that space.
Yeah, I actually just did a keynote in Florida at PGA National, and I used an example actually from Lowe's, their digital twin work that's going on, and it's really interesting again what retailers are doing in this space. So, but let's go on to the next slide because I don't want to run out of time.
Yep.
Because we still have a lot to cover. So let's go by region, and this one surprised me and didn't surprise me. Your forecast says that Asia is going to lead the world in terms of the highest impact in terms of AI in retail going forward. Some of them make sense if you look at, because of the population size, you look at the size of India, look at the size of China, huge population. And also prior to COVID, I was using China as really the future of retail with all the work that was going on at Alibaba and JD.com. Right. But COVID seems to have slowed them down. What do you think is going to happen with, what's your view on that in terms of Asia in general?
Well, I'm still bullish on Asia, although it's in a hiccup mode. And what's interesting, there was a chart that came out today. I think it was Wall Street Journal or Bloomberg, whenever it came out today, that showed the inflation rates for the Asian economies. And they're all extreme at zero or negative right now, are seeing deflation in South Korea, Vietnam, Japan, and China right now. They're in a situation almost similar where we were 2 years ago before we had the influx of money. Now, the question is, our government's going to give stimulus there to consumers to drive that up. But long term, the populations and the move out of poverty into middle class there is just generating a ton of things. But it's also a much higher percentage of retail that is e-commerce and pure play e-commerce there. You know, I kind of, you know, Prime Day shouldn't be a laughing matter here, but it is when you compare it to Singles Day, you know, and it's like, oh, Prime Day might be $12 billion this year, you know, and you're just like, that's an hour.
Exactly. That's an hour on Singles Day.
So that's just how much is purchased online and how much more is purchased online and on mobile. That gives them, the larger retailers, a tremendous advantage there. So it's just pure numbers there that generates why Asia is bigger. Also, it's going to be less. We believe there's going to be less rules and regulations and government intervention, and that's one of the reasons why we have EMEA lower than North America, even though economically it's a larger general area. Is just we're already seeing it. There's more regulation that's going to slow down the generative AI in those areas that you don't have in Asia. And so a lot of the headwinds are not there in Asia to grow. Also, facial recognition and all of those things are commonplace there, and you can leverage that technology for customer identification there, and thus provide more customized offers and increase sales, all those things.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. If I look at Europe, they just passed their first draft law actually trying to control AI, targeting what ChatGPT can actually look at, and then also targeting facial recognition. And this is just the beginning of the journey that's supposedly going to get something done by fall. So I think Europe is going to lag. I do think North America is exactly where it's at in terms of being second and really stepping up in terms of what they're doing. And I feel bad for Latin America, but let's move on in terms of talking about the size of retailer and why the size of retail size does matter in this case. So
Yeah,
So Greg, talk about this one a little bit.
that's the real bias. The real bias is that the benefits go to the largest companies. Here, we said during COVID, when we had the outlay, we had the definition of what was an essential retailer and a non-essential retailer. That was the biggest move of money from small to large that we had ever seen. Walmart, Costco, those guys could be open, sell clothes, but the local boutique could not be open. And we saw a massive move there. Similar with restaurants, we lost about 443,000 small retailers during the early stages of the pandemic there. They have come back with abandon in a huge way, particularly the restaurants in the last couple of years there. But the fact that you've got large retailers that have been doing this work, consistently doing this work, versus smaller retailers that, let's face it, a 200% gain in sales is less than a 0.1 for a small retailer due to AI in a year is still inconsequential compared to a 0.001 of Home Depot increase in sales, simply because of the scale. And that's why you've literally got, the joke in football would be like Alabama against the Little Sisters of the Poor type of thing. And that's when you look at the AI, although you're going to see systems that are going to be deployed for the small retailers to make it easier in AI, this magnitudes of the dollars are so much smaller than the other things. So that's why the economic impact. And I think it's important to say right now, this is potential impact. This doesn't necessarily mean increased sales, increased profits. This is the potential for that. I've never seen retail ever say, oh, we got all these increases in profits and we're not going to lower prices or become more competitive or do the other things in the marketplace. So this is impact potential, not necessarily, hey, we expect Walmart sales or profits to go that high there, because we expect them to actually use those savings to do things. And certainly Amazon has never done that. Just taking the money and taking the profits. So
yeah, we're getting a lot of questions. Let me just get a couple in. Is economic impact the same as IT spend?
No, it's not. And I saw the question from Jeff, and that's a great question, Jeff. We're going to use the same model, so to speak, of how we use the technology to look at the IT spend. And unfortunately, the first discussion is, how do you divorce it from the actual categories versus a separate category? And I don't have the answer to that. I mean, we literally asked it for the first time yesterday on how we could do that with our IT spend model there for that. So it is not IT spend, although the fascinating thing was that CNBC thing we were talking about yesterday. That is by far the most bullish I've seen anybody report on IT spend.
Let me interject a couple others. We need to keep hearing about, we keep hearing about sensor-based technology like RFID enabling AI in retail.
Yep.
However, continue to struggle on understanding a near-term use case. Do you see any from, other than inventory visibility? I do clearly see that. But how do you think AI and RFID play together?
Well, the biggest thing is the fact that if you're making a forecast on bad data, you just get bad forecasts faster.
That's correct.
Where RFID comes in is having an accurate view of your inventory. And if you have perpetual RFID, you have, real-time view of your inventory. Where RFID as well is, you can't sell it if you don't know if you got it in your store. So all that safety stock issues, all those other things, and just the amount of labor that you're spending, somebody running around the store trying to find it. Do we have it? It says we've got 3, but where are they? All that extra time just destroys the margin of the deal. So there's tremendous value in RFID in and of itself, but the key value regarding AI is that you get to far more accurate data of what you actually have. And as a result, you can make far more accurate forecasts quicker.
Yeah, and then the other quick question is, what sources and learnings do we need to take now so we don't fall behind?
So I'll tell you what I did. I went to YouTube. There is a YouTuber named Obscurious who reviews like 25 tools a week and shows you what they do and don't do. You spend a few hours doing that first. Like I said, your mind's going to be blown at all of these tools that are out there. But yeah, so it's good. So
Okay, let's talk about this. This is a very important chart. This is actually one of my favorite charts from the research, which is the retailers impacted by this. And not surprising, the e-commerce folks went to the top exactly as you mentioned earlier, because they have a ton of data and they don't have to deal with as many legacy systems because they haven't been around as long either. So talk about in terms of this priority, in terms of each, and how do you think?
Yeah, so it's simplicity of systems for the e-commerce guys. It's sheer size for the next three markets and homogeneity of their groups. Grocery is 29% of all retail is in food grocery. So that's a huge chunk there. Then they're going to benefit greatly. Then you've got the mass merchants and the hypermarkets who are ahead of everybody in the AI. Google or Walmart had more data scientists that they hired than Google had for 2020. So, or excuse me, 2019 before the pandemic. So huge benefits there. And then in hard goods, particularly DIY being the area, because those guys have been investing heavily for the last couple of years and also got the benefit from the pandemic of people staying home and investments. So they have the funds to be able to do that. And all the other segments there, it's either size or franchised nature and just much more difficult to get the data together.
Got it. And in terms of use cases in each of these, any use cases that stand out in terms?
Yeah, I mean, it literally forecasting, negotiation, marketing, personalization, all of those things play out in a huge way. Your better loyalty programs. I mean, it's massive. It just occurred to me, we've got the examples. We've talked a lot of data. We need to get to the example.
Yeah, let's go.
We're running out of time here. Let's see. So I'm going to just show you guys some examples here. I wanted to give you a couple of examples just to show you this how it really turns with AI. But the forecast a little bit more in context when you see the types of things that generative AI can do beyond just being a replacement for search engines. So first of all, what's really important when you're dealing with ChatGPT, Bard, or any of these other generative AI services is there are three major things that you've got to give it to eliminate hallucinations. Number one, you've got to give it a persona. So in this case, we're saying function as an expert software product manager for the retail industry. This example is something many on the call probably have to deal with. And we're going to literally get from a prompt to a business plan in less than 5 minutes. So the next thing is you want to add the context, the relative context of what you're looking for. This greatly narrows things down even further, and it tells the system exactly what you want to include or not include in the response. And then finally, you have to give it the output instructions for what you want. So in this case, we're asking it to create an outline with titles and bullet points that will basically create a business plan for this new software tool. So when we take this and we dump it into ChatGPT, it comes in as something like this, as a big prompt. And then from here, in about 5 or 6 seconds, it generates the detailed outline for the PowerPoint, or excuse me, for the business plan. And then from that, we tell it to convert this to HTML code. And when you do that, it actually creates an HTML code for you that you copy into an editor. And then from there, you're able to add it into a Word file. So what you end up with is a file that can be opened in Word that you save as a docx file, save it up to Word Online, and you end up with a file like this. Now, the outline is here. You can ask further questions. You can build this out, but the outlines with the headings and all the things are in place here. Now, this is where the magic happens and saves a ton of time. You come in and you say export to a PowerPoint, and it gives you options. And I've already done this, so I'm going to show you some options here, but I've already had this output. And in less than 5 minutes, you have an entire PowerPoint business plan of your SaaS software pricing tool. So here we talked about the platform compatibility, being agnostic in the cloud. We talked about vendors here. You even have with the designer function there that's in place, you can actually have it as well go into bring in the logos for each of these players and do that. We've got our pricing strategy there, et cetera, for all of these different things. So in less than 5 minutes, you can go from idea to business plan in PowerPoint, which is a massive savings of time that would take a day or more for somebody to do normally through that process. Now, the second one is the ability to add your own content up into a box where this is your content and it can be shared. So I uploaded, and this is a product called My Ask AI. I uploaded 4 IHL documents. These include things like a web page where I've got a whole bunch of stuff that we did for our inventory system for grocery there, where we looked at U.S. households and that had Amazon, et cetera. And that's going to be my example here. But we also had our returns report up there, et cetera. And it even prompts you for particular questions based on the content that you added. So I added a total of 4 documents. What I'm asking it to do now is to how many U.S. households have Amazon Prime, and how does that change by income is my question. So when I click on that, it's now going to go through my content and pull that up. So you see the output that comes from our particular documents that are there. This could be tremendous improvement for customer service people, for anything, any content you want to do for training, for anybody, that you can get the pure content and the expertise up there with little to no cost, but that you can have somebody acting as an expert in that particular field through that knowledge. Now, I'm going to add that link here to the video here, so you can just see on the left side, if you want to have access to this particular example on My Ask AI, you can query that yourself through the link that I just put on the screen. Now, the third one, we're going to switch over to Chrome, because this is a Chrome add-on called AI PRM. And there's a series of these tools that make content development extremely, extremely fast. So in one line, you can have it do a complete blog. So it's funny. I did this one and I actually spelled the word importance wrong, but in one sentence, it ended up creating this entire blog here with frequently asked questions regarding things. So as you go through there, this is optimized for search optimization already. You have a first draft that's already complete for that. Now, I only gave it one line of context, so the end result is something that's rather generic. However, when we looked at our business plan example, and I did the same thing with our detail prompt and added that in here. Okay, so here's what I wrote in there. Now, all of a sudden, it has now created an entire article based on that and what's going on with our details about our pricing structure there. So very little effort to so I'll turn that off and go back to the slides. But I just wanted to share with you examples just to see how powerful this is. In fact, since the time I did that demo, so My Ask AI, there's another one called Humata.ai that'll actually create content across your thing. So I did our return study, I did our AI, and I did our analytics studies up there. And I said, write a 300-word article on the impact of artificial intelligence on improving the return problem. And it just, boom, it goes through and it pulls the data from all of them and creates a new article based on that from a first draft. So really powerful types of tools. There's so many more to choose from, but those just give you some examples.
Yeah, and I think the audience would like a copy of those tools, but you already said you'll make those available. So we'll make sure we'll add those as part of the distribution post the session. So let's go through by benefit. So talk about this one in terms of the key benefits that we're going to see out of AI.
Yeah, so what I really want to talk about is, where does generative AI fit? And we think that 51% of the benefits are going to be in sales. It's going to be in that personalization ability to increase sales. Now, you have to keep in mind that on a pure dollar perspective at sales level, we're at the 100% impact, 100% level. So SG&A, although on a percentage basis, generative AI will have much more impact on SG&A. The SG&A is typically only about 29%, between 29 and 37% of retail expenditures of revenue. So you have a much lower number to work with there. So we think generative AI on a percentage basis is going to have the biggest impact with cost. On a dollar basis, it's going to be the highest in sales, and it'll have a little bit to do with gross margins improvement there.
Okay. And then let's go over the function.
Yep.
And let's talk about function. So this will get interesting to me in terms of the different areas of the retail functions that they get impacted. Anyone stand out to me? Merchandising is the one that stood out to me.
Yeah, it's a huge area of spend because everything goes through that. Everything, every product goes through there, all your costs associated with this. So when you think of AI and how you can reduce things, it's better load management, better planning, better forecast, all those things to improve your warehouses, your distribution, so you can do your robotics there as well. Massive benefits in the supply chain side of things. Far less at the store level, even though if you looked at IT spend, the store is where the bulk of the IT spend is. It's less impactful at that level. Although there's going to be significant impacts. So, so when you look at all these different areas, what we really went into is how much does it improve or provide economic benefits in those areas, and so much of that is dependent on size and just the opportunity for improvement in those areas versus where.
And as I know, we got a very wide audience. Every single function gets impact. So let's end with the final slide before we wrap it up, which is I do think we're going to be some questions about how AI impacts humanity. This is data actually from Pew Research that basically says not a lot of people fully understand what AI is doing. Only 50% are more are concerned, are more excited than concerned in terms of the increased use of AI. And I did my own poll, and I was shocked in terms of what percentage. I did my own poll on LinkedIn in terms of what destroy humanity. So we got to watch this. This is one of those areas we all got to pay attention to, because this is one of those Gutenberg moment that's got potential, but we also discuss some risks.
Yeah, I'm going to write a blog post on this because we're worried about the wrong things, to be honest. I'm not worried about the nukes. I'm not worried about the robots killing us or becoming autonomous or any of that stuff. The biggest threat, I believe, is going to come from what retail does with AI that will not be regulated. I think all these other areas are going to be regulated. I think there's going to be regulations in place. But what happens when we personalize everything? We already saw what happened with social media and politics, just presidential elections. We saw the fact that social media fed us reinforcing data based on what we had clicked on previously. And it's caused tremendous division. Okay. Well, what happens when you get an ad that for a product to sell you a product or a candidate or whatever that is completely focused on you, your preferences, etc.? It's a no-brainer. Tony should own this. Tony should own this product because they like this, 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 and this. And Greg gets something differently, and it's the exact same product, but we are diametrically opposed in those things. And we need the product because it supports the opposite of everything there. This just creates tremendous amount of division. And that is our biggest challenge in a society right now, is the distrust that we have because of division of people, friendships destroyed because of this social media, and the exponential increase in depression and fear as a result of this personalization of these ads. That to me is the biggest risk here. It's not AI taking over the nukes or whatever, because I think that stuff will be regulated at the top.
No, that's a very good point. I mean, I just saw something actually yesterday. There was a family breaking apart because Netflix stopped sharing passwords. And so because you're not sharing or paying for you're not paying the Netflix, families are breaking apart. The world's getting crazy. Anyway, This has been an extremely enlightening discussion for me also. I really have enjoyed. Greg, you want to close with this?
Yeah, just wanted to let you guys know, if you're interested in more information, our whole forecast is available on our website. This will be hyperlinked in the slides here, as well as there's a free version, which is the white paper for which all this data is in place, plus the webinar that I did that went through the model. Some more products that we got coming out later this year on research papers that'll come out. And then one of the fun ones here is we're adding an AI readiness index where we'll be able to rank retailers on how ready they are compared to the industry to take advantage of AI. And we'll be releasing that later this summer. So if you're interested in any of those things, perhaps there's our contact information. And I know we got a lot of questions and we got a few minutes.
Okay, we're going to follow up on this. This has been, again, an amazing session for me, and I hope it's the same for the audience. I will make sure they get spread out to the rest of the community. We had a tremendous amount of folks signing up for this. So thank you very much to the entire audience. And with that, let us sign off, and thank you and have a good day.